I never thought a routine day at work would lead me to uncover a massive fraud. Now, I'm being threatened to stay silent, but I can't. The truth is out there, and I'm not backing down. What would you do if your job, reputation, and life were at risk? I'm Ethan Miller, 28 years old. Chances are, you've never heard of me, and most people at the office probably don't remember my name. I'm not the type to make a splash in meetings or be the life of the office parties. I prefer to work alone, buried in numbers and data, looking for discrepancies that most people would miss. I'm a financial analyst at Westbrook Investment Partners, one of the top investment firms in Denver. My job is pretty simple: review financial reports, check for any odd expenditures, and make sure everything stays within the lines. But there's one thing I know for sure: numbers don't lie. If you're patient enough and smart enough, you'll always find the truth, no matter how well it's hidden. I remember the first time I noticed something strange in the Turner Group's accounts. You've probably heard of them. They're one of our biggest clients. They have ties with just about everyone in the industry, so no one questions their transactions. But I'm not like most people. I don't trust relationships or the protection that money can provide. Those things can't hide the truth. It all started one Monday morning when I received a report. At first, it was just a few strange figures, some payments that didn't quite match up with the records. Invoices that didn't align with bank data. Vendors that barely had an online presence, if any. And then, I started noticing a pattern in the transactions: large sums of money funneled through 3 shell companies, all routing funds to vague, hard-to-track accounts in tax havens. It wasn't a coincidence. Things became clearer the deeper I dug into the files. Some of these amounts weren't just large, they were ridiculously round numbers, as if someone was trying too hard to hide something. I started to suspect that there was something much bigger at play, something involving the company I worked for. Could this be money laundering? Or was I just scratching the surface of a much larger corruption scheme? I couldn't let it go. I had to look deeper. And I knew that if what I suspected was true, everything would change. It could cost me my job, or worse, drag me into something I couldn't escape from. But once you see the truth, you can't just look away and pretend everything is fine. I began to wonder, would I have the guts to expose this? Would doing so not only change my life but unravel a corrupt system that had been in place for so long at the company? If I did this, there would be no turning back. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was onto something big. The more I examined the Turner Group's accounts, the clearer it became. Payments, invoices, and vendors, nothing added up. The shell companies, the routing patterns, the inflated sums, it all pointed in one direction. Money was being moved around in ways that didn't make sense, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. The question was, what should I do about it? After several sleepless nights piecing everything together, I decided I had no choice but to take it to Brian Harris, my manager. He was a well-respected figure in the firm, known for his sharp instincts and expensive golf clubs. If anyone could make sense of the mess I was seeing, it was him. I grabbed the folder I'd prepared with all the evidence and knocked on his office door. "Come in," Brian called without looking up from his computer. I stepped in, setting the folder on his desk. "Brian, I found something strange with the Turner Group accounts," I said, trying to sound confident, though the weight of the moment was pressing on me. He glanced up briefly, then back at the screen. "Strange? How strange?" I pointed to the highlighted sections in the report, laying out the inconsistencies. "These transactions are going through shell companies, Brian. Same routing pattern, same inflated amounts, it's systematic." Brian's expression hardened as he flipped through the pages, scanning the evidence. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just flipping through the documents. When he closed the folder, his hand lingered on it longer than it should have. He finally spoke, his voice measured but firm. "Ethan, these clients are too important. We can't afford to start poking around in their business. Let it go." I froze, unable to mask the disbelief in my expression. This wasn't just a request, it was an order. Are you saying we should ignore this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Exactly, he replied, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. We can't risk upsetting them. Turner Group is one of our largest clients. If you push this, we might lose them, and that would be bad for all of us. I could feel the tension mounting between us. My instincts screamed that something was off. Brian's voice was calm, but there was a nervousness underlying his words. Something didn't sit right. The way he avoided my gaze, the urgency in his refusal, it wasn't just about losing a client. It felt like something deeper, something he didn't want me to uncover. I nodded, though I was far from satisfied. I gathered my things and left his office, my mind racing. As I walked back to my desk, my heart pounded in my chest. Brian had made it clear, ignore the problem and everything would be fine. But my gut told me something else. This wasn't just about the Turner Group, this was about protecting something much larger, something that reached further than I'd ever imagined. I sat down at my desk, staring at the screen. The evidence was right there, and I knew I couldn't walk away. The question now was, what was I willing to risk to uncover the truth? The days following my conversation with Brian felt heavier. I spent each moment second-guessing myself, wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe Brian was right. Maybe I was just looking for a problem that wasn't there. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was onto something big. Every piece of evidence I had pointed in the same direction, and I knew it couldn't be ignored. Then, the phone call came. Heather from HR. She was polite, but her voice held a certain detachment that immediately made my stomach drop. Ethan, I need you to come by my office. We have some things to discuss regarding your position. I didn't know what to expect, but I was already bracing myself for bad news. When I arrived at HR, Heather handed me a small envelope with the company's logo on it. As she spoke, her words felt like they were in slow motion. Effective immediately, we're eliminating your position due to restructuring. We appreciate your contributions, but we need to make some changes moving forward. Your severance check will be deposited, and you're required to clean out your desk by noon. I tried to process what was happening. My mind was racing. This was absurd. I had just done my job, reported a potential issue, and now I was being shown the door. But it wasn't just that. It felt like a gut punch. A betrayal, almost. I had been working tirelessly for this company for 2 years. I had stayed late, worked weekends, done everything I could to prove myself. And now this. I cleared out my desk quietly, trying to ignore the looks from my colleagues. No one said anything, but I could feel the silence in the air. As I walked out, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. This wasn't just a layoff, it was retaliation. I had crossed a line, and now I was paying the price. The more I thought about it, the more everything started to fall into place. Brian's refusal to listen to my concerns, the sudden decision to let me go, it wasn't just business. It was personal. The truth was, I had discovered something that threatened to expose a whole network of corruption, and I was being silenced before I could get too far. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just about losing my job, it was about protecting something much bigger than me. And now, I had no choice but to go all in. Whatever this was, I couldn't back down. I wasn't going to let them shut me up. The night after I was fired, I sat in my dimly lit apartment, staring at my laptop. The severance check had already been deposited into my account, and yet, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I had only scratched the surface of something far more dangerous. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't walk away. There was too much at stake now. But I was stuck, unsure of who to turn to for help. Then, a name crossed my mind, Olivia Scott. I had met her briefly a few months ago when she checked on a discrepancy I had flagged in a different account. She was sharp, meticulous, and intimidating to some. But she had also given me her card with a simple line, if you ever see something that doesn't add up, my door is open. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it, but now, I couldn't help but feel she might be my best shot at understanding what was really going on. I picked up the phone and called her. The conversation was short, and she agreed to meet me the following evening. My heart pounded as I prepared for our meeting, unsure of what I would find out. When we finally sat down, Olivia didn't waste any time. She handed me a thick stack of documents, her expression unreadable. "I found more," she said cryptically, sliding the papers toward me. As I sifted through them, I could feel the weight of each page. These weren't just the scattered pieces I had been collecting, they were comprehensive, detailed, and they linked the Turner Group's transactions to even more companies, accounts, and people. This was bigger than I had imagined. But as I looked up, my eyes met Olivia's, and she asked a question that made my blood run cold. "Why do you trust me, Ethan? Why do you think I'm going to help you?" I froze. The question felt like a trap, and I could hear the tension in her voice. It wasn't just curiosity, it was something else. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond, when she added, almost too casually, "I know what you've discovered, Ethan. Don't be foolish." Her words sent a chill down my spine. In that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just dealing with a colleague who wanted to help me. Olivia might have her own agenda, one that I wasn't privy to. I tried to hide my unease, but I couldn't ignore the growing sense of danger. Was Olivia truly on my side, or was she playing me? The question lingered, making everything I thought I knew feel uncertain. I couldn't sleep that night. The documents Olivia had given me were too much to digest in one sitting. Every page revealed a new layer of the web I had inadvertently walked into, but there was something more unsettling about them than just the scope of the fraud. It felt like I was uncovering something that could destroy everything, my job, my reputation, my life. The weight of it pressed down on me, and I couldn't stop thinking about what Olivia had said. Was she really helping me, or was she setting me up for something darker? As if on cue, the phone rang the next morning. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut told me it was important. I answered, and the voice on the other end sent a jolt through my body. "Ethan, it's Brian," he said, his tone eerily calm, but the words that followed made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "I know you're still digging into this. You need to stop. Now." My heart raced, and I could feel the tension building in my chest. There was no mistaking it, this wasn't just a warning about a little office mistake anymore. This was a direct threat. "Brian, what the hell is going on? Why are you protecting this?" I asked, my voice barely concealing my rising anger. "Listen to me, Ethan," Brian continued, his voice dropping lower. "This isn't just about the Turner Group. There are people involved here who will stop at nothing to protect what they've built. You've seen too much. If you keep pushing, there will be consequences. Serious consequences." His voice was flat now, devoid of the usual charisma. "Don't test them. Don't test me." I felt a chill spread through me as he hung up, leaving me with only the deafening silence of the line. I sat there, phone still in hand, staring at the screen. The weight of his words lingered in the air, thick with the threat of something much larger than I had realized. I knew I had stumbled upon something dangerous, but this was different. It wasn't just the fraud that was at stake now, it was my life. Brian's message was clear: if I didn't back off, I wouldn't just lose my job. I could lose everything. I stood up, pacing back and forth. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and I knew I couldn't back down. I had already come too far. I had seen the connections between Turner Group and the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the illicit money trails. There was no turning back. The truth was right in front of me, and I couldn't let fear stop me now. But even as I made that decision, a gnawing doubt settled in. The people Brian had mentioned, who were they? What kind of power did they hold? I had been careful, cautious, but what if it wasn't enough? What if the people behind this network of corruption had already set their sights on me? Brian wasn't just warning me about losing my job. He was warning me about something far more dangerous. And now, the risk was no longer about the company. It was about my survival. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to shake the growing unease. But I couldn't. This was bigger than just numbers on a spreadsheet. This was a fight for something far more valuable: truth, integrity, and my own place in the world. The decision had been made, but it didn't make the fear any less real. The deeper I went, the more it felt like I was walking on a tightrope, and one wrong move could send me crashing down into the abyss. There was no turning back. I had to finish what I had started, no matter the cost. But as the phone call from Brian echoed in my mind, I couldn't ignore the truth. The battle I was about to fight wasn't just against corporate corruption. It was against forces far more powerful than I could have imagined. The next few days were a blur. I continued to sift through the documents Olivia had provided, trying to piece everything together. The more I uncovered, the more questions I had. Olivia's presence, once a source of reassurance, now felt like a shadow I couldn't escape. There was something in the way she acted, something in the quiet confidence she displayed, that made me uneasy. I couldn't ignore the nagging thought that maybe she wasn't just helping me after all. And then, that night, everything changed. I had arranged to meet Olivia again. This time, I wanted to ask her straight up what was going on. I needed answers. When I arrived at the small cafe where we'd agreed to meet, she was already sitting at a corner table, her usual calm demeanor in place. I hesitated for a moment, then walked over, trying to steady my breath. Something in my gut told me that tonight would be different. As I sat down, Olivia handed me a new folder, this one thicker than all the others. "I found more," she said, her voice low, almost too casual. "But this is different. This could change everything." I opened the folder with shaky hands. Inside, I found more than just the usual financial statements and transaction logs. There were names of people I recognized from the firm, clients I knew. And there, at the top of the list, was Olivia's name. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just about Turner Group anymore. It was about Westbrook itself. I looked up at her, feeling the weight of the truth settle in. Olivia's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something else, something colder. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not just helping you, Ethan," she said, her gaze never leaving mine. "I'm part of this. I've been watching you. And now you know too much." The room seemed to close in around me. I couldn't breathe. The documents, the conversations, the subtle hints, I had missed it all. Olivia wasn't just another employee. She was a key player in the very thing I had been trying to expose. A part of the network I had been digging into. She had been there all along, feeding me just enough to keep me going, while making sure I didn't uncover too much. "You're not going to stop, are you?" Olivia's voice was no longer soothing, it was hard, almost cold. "I didn't want to have to do this, Ethan. But you've left me with no choice." She pushed a piece of paper across the table toward me. "You can either walk away, and we'll make sure this all goes away quietly, or you can continue, and we'll make sure you regret it." The silence between us was deafening. My mind was racing, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Was this it? Was this the point where everything I thought I knew came crashing down? Olivia wasn't just a colleague. She was a part of the corruption, and now, I was caught in the middle of a game I didn't understand. I looked at the paper in front of me, my thoughts swirling. The choice was mine, but it didn't feel like a choice at all. The paper Olivia slid across the table felt like a lead weight in my hands. The choice was clear, but it wasn't really a choice at all. If I walked away, everything I'd worked for, everything I believed in, would crumble. But if I continued, if I pushed further, I was signing up for a battle that could cost me everything. I looked up from the paper and met Olivia's gaze. Her expression was unreadable, but I could see the faintest flicker of uncertainty behind her cold eyes. She wasn't as certain as she let on. Maybe, deep down, she wasn't sure if I would back down. I made my decision in that moment. I wasn't going to let fear dictate my life. I wasn't going to let these corrupt forces win. I won't walk away, I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions brewing inside me. I'm going to make this right. I'll go to the authorities. Olivia didn't flinch. She simply nodded, her lips curling into a tight smile. You've made your choice, she said, standing up to leave. But remember, once you've crossed this line, there's no turning back. As I watched her walk away, I knew the gravity of my decision. It was no longer just about exposing corruption in a company, it was about standing up for something greater than myself. I wasn't going to let this system of lies and deceit continue. And though I feared the consequences, I knew in my heart that I had chosen the right path. I contacted the FBI the next day. With their help, I laid out everything I had uncovered, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, and the powerful people behind it all. It took weeks, but eventually, the case broke wide open. The financial network I had stumbled upon was exposed, and many of those responsible were arrested. Turner Group was no longer untouchable. Westbrook Investment Partners would never be the same. In the aftermath, I felt a strange mix of relief and loss. I had done the right thing, but it had come at a cost. I had lost my job, my reputation had been dragged through the mud, and I couldn't help but wonder what other sacrifices lay ahead. But deep down, I knew it had been worth it. I remembered my grandmother's words, "Trust your gut, Ethan." She had always told me that. And in that moment, it was her voice I heard in my mind. Trusting my gut had led me to the truth, no matter how painful it was to uncover. A few months later, I found myself standing at my grandmother's grave, the weight of everything I had been through settling in my chest. I placed a bouquet of flowers by her headstone and whispered my thanks. "You were right," I said quietly, the words more for myself than for her. Trusting my gut, it changed everything. As I stood there, I realized something else too. Sometimes, doing the right thing means standing alone. It means walking a path where no one else is willing to go. But in the end, it's always worth it. Walking away from corruption and greed, I moved on to a new chapter in my life. I started a new job, one where my integrity was valued. I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. And as I continued to share my story with others, I couldn't help but ask myself, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you stand up for what's right, no matter the cost?